I've been married to my wife, Tina, for a whole decade. I always believed that we had a solid, unbreakable bond. That all came crashing down one Wednesday evening when I walked in the door after work. Tina hit me with the classic, "We need to talk" line, which anyone knows is the ominous beginning to a lot of crazy conversations. My heart immediately sank, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. She sat me down, and with a deep breath, she launched into her confession. "I love you, and I want to grow old with you," she began, which made me brace for impact. I could sense we were heading into seriously bad territory. "But there's something I need to tell you," she continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I've made up my mind that I want to have a lover." I blinked, completely stunned. "Let me get this straight," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You love me, you don't want to mess up our relationship, but you want to get intimate with someone else?" "That's putting it rather bluntly," she replied, looking somewhat relieved to have gotten it off her chest. "I've met someone I want to be intimate with. It would just be an occasional thing, and I promise I'll always be upfront with you about it. My love for you is strong enough that it won't mess with my feelings for you." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Why do you think this is necessary?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "How can you believe it won't mess us up? Have you already made secret plans with this guy?" She nodded, a small, almost defiant smile playing on her lips. "We were thinking about going away for the weekend next weekend," she added confidently. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "How would you react if I made such a proposal to you?" I asked. Tina seemed taken aback by the question. "I think I would be okay with it if you assured me it wouldn't affect us," she said hesitantly. I could see she was lying. "You know full well you would have gone ballistic at any mention of such a thing," I sneered. She looked hurt and said, "I really didn't expect you to get this angry. I thought you loved me enough to let me do something that meant this much to me." "Whatever you're smoking is definitely illegal," I shot back. "Did you think I'd just tell you it was okay to go screw this guy? Do you expect me to sit at home while you spend the weekend screwing him?" Tina looked down, clearly not expecting this reaction. "Maybe I didn't think it through too well," she admitted. "You think?" I retorted. "If I say no, are you going to go through with it anyway?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I didn't really think you would refuse." "Give me a few days to think about this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We can sit down on Sunday afternoon and discuss it after I've had some time to think." I walked to our bedroom and began moving my things to the guest room. "What are you doing?" she asked, looking puzzled. "I don't really want to sleep in the same bed with you when you're obviously thinking more about someone else than you are me," I replied, slamming the door behind me. I didn't sleep much that night, but I did come up with a game plan. The next day, I left the house at the usual time but never spoke a word to Tina. I called work and said I needed the next 2 days off for personal reasons. Then I got to work. I bought 3 voice-activated recorders. I put one close to the phone, one in the bedroom, and one in her car. I also found a phone tape recorder to tie into our phones and installed that. My next stop was the cell phone provider. Since my name was on her phone, I had no problem getting a copy of her phone charges. While she was still at work, I checked into her email accounts. She had opened one which I didn't know about, but the password was easy to guess. I found a treasure trove of emails there. At least I discovered that she hadn't done anything with this guy yet. I set it up to forward any emails from that account to me without showing that it was doing so. The last thing for the day was a pair of GPS locators. These were quite small and easy to hide. I was going to put one in her wallet because she would surely keep her cash and credit cards with her, and the other would go in her car. It had been a busy day, but I had things lined up to be able to know what was going on with her. The only other thing I needed in that respect was to get her cell phone and see what messages might be on there. I hoped to do that in the evening as well as plant the GPS devices. I checked her emails and found that she and James Williams had exchanged several emails. James Williams was a co-worker, and I planned to ruin his life just like he was about to ruin mine. The emails made it clear that the next weekend was a go, and nothing I said would make a difference. Friday, I went to a highly recommended divorce lawyer. I instructed him to kickstart the divorce proceedings, citing adultery as the cause. James Williams was named as the other guy, and I was dead set on suing him. My lawyer assured me it would be a piece of cake if I had solid proof. I laid it all out for him: emails, phone records, and even spilled the beans about the upcoming audio tapes. He was thrilled and promised to get the ball rolling right away. When Tina came home that evening, I ignored her and didn't even speak to her. When she was making supper, I walked out and went to a bar to eat and have a few beers. When I arrived home, she stood up and began to talk to me. I just walked past her, went into the guest room and slammed the door. The only chance she had of saving our marriage was to cancel her plans with James, but I didn't think that was going to happen. I ignored her the rest of the weekend until Sunday afternoon. I told her it was time to talk, and we took seats in the kitchen. I went first. You might have surmised that I am not at all happy with your request. I have given it a lot of thought and can think of no way that I can be okay with this. She looked down, her hands twisting nervously. I can see that you're very angry, she said. If you had looked at it from my point of view, you might have been a little more receptive. I did try to look at it from your perspective, I said, but I see no way any good could come from this. So my answer has to be no. Tina's eyes filled with tears. How could you be so selfish? If you love me, you would let me do this. I am the selfish one? I asked, incredulous. It seems to me that your desire to be with someone else is the most selfish thing I've ever heard. What happens if I do this anyway? There will be serious consequences for any sex outside of our marriage, I warned. We pledged exclusive vows a decade ago, she reminded me. But you know what? This is just something I have to do, so I guess this chat is done. I got up and stormed out of the house. I grabbed my laptop, headed to a Wi-Fi spot, and started snooping on their emails. She was very angry and assured him that she was going no matter what. He told her that was good because he had already reserved a room at the Hilton in Kansas City for Friday and Saturday nights. I immediately reserved that room for Thursday night. They were making this way too easy. They were also planning a romantic date on Saturday evening. A nice dinner, some dancing, then hot sex. Tina told him she bought some sexy new underwear just for their date. I got something to eat while I was watching their correspondences. They were past my refusal and on to making plans for their weekend. Check-in time was 3 o'clock, so he was going to pick her up at 1 o'clock since it was a 2-hour drive and they wanted to be there as early as possible. I was surprised he was going to pick her up at the house. I reserved a room for the weekend also, close enough to theirs to pick up all the signals. I got all the things I needed in the next few days. I got a couple of small fiber optic HD video cameras. I planned on mounting them in the room on Thursday, so I would be all ready to record their weekend tryst. This would be perfect ammunition for my divorce filing. I totally ignored Tina the entire time, but Wednesday was the day of final reckoning for her. I would give her one last chance. If she chose James, we were done. I asked her to sit at the table so we could talk for a minute. She didn't look happy, but she did. I began, "Have you given any more thought to this?" "I have," she said, "and I still want to do it." "I'm going to tell you one last time to reconsider," I pleaded. "Please don't destroy our marriage for this gruesome guy. This is your last chance, and if you go ahead, you will pay a heavy price." "I'm going with James on Friday afternoon, and I will be back Sunday afternoon," she stated firmly. "I hope we can get past this and go on." "So you chose James over me," I said quietly. "I guess that tells me all that I need to know." I stood up and walked out of the room. When I got into the guest room, I slammed the door as usual. This time, my marriage was done, and somebody was going to pay. Thursday morning, I rolled into work and dropped the bomb on my boss, saying I needed the afternoon and the next day off. Naturally, he was curious, so I spilled the beans, telling him I was in the final stages of divorcing Tina. He looked bummed, but assured me he had my back, giving me the green light for all the time I needed. I drove to Kansas City on Thursday and checked into their room. I got all the devices put in place and checked them all to make sure everything was working fine. I wanted to have all the evidence I needed for the divorce, then I was going to mess with them. I used my laptop to make sure that all the cameras worked and were aimed correctly. I sat still long enough for them to shut off, then moved around to make sure they all came on. Everything was perfect. I walked down the hall past the room I would use that weekend to make sure it was in range. Again, it was okay. I drove back home and contemplated the end of my marriage. I had one more stop to make. I stopped at a gun store and bought a small can of pepper spray. I was going to use this to mess up their romantic date. When I got home, Tina was standing in the kitchen. She looked at me expectantly, but I just walked past her without a word. I slammed my door again. Tina came into my room and wanted to be friendly. I told her to save it for James because I didn't need a mercy session. I turned my back on her and she left. I slept fitfully that night, but I had everything in place to end this. Friday morning, I got up and left at the normal time without saying a word to her. I went to the lawyer's office and signed the papers. I told him I would have all the evidence by Monday and asked that she be served at work Monday afternoon. I also requested that they serve papers to James at the same time. I was suing him for alienation of affection. The lawyer assured me it would be a piece of cake if I had solid proof. I checked Tina's GPS and saw that she was getting her hair done. I went into the house, opened her suitcase, and found her sexy new underwear. They were really quite sexy. Too bad she wasn't doing this for me. I put on rubber gloves and took out the pepper spray. I sprayed the crotch of her panties and the cuffs of her bra with it, then put them back in the suitcase. This was going to be fun. I went to our bank and closed all our joint accounts, putting all the cash in a new account. Then I canceled all the credit cards which had both names on them. After a satisfying morning, I went home to say goodbye to my wife. It was 12:30, so I knew she would be getting ready for her new man. When I entered the house, Tina was nowhere to be seen, so I assumed she was upstairs getting ready. I walked up to our room and walked in. She stood there in some sexy underwear I'd given her once. She went to cover herself, but I told her not to be stupid as I had seen it all before. She looked very good with a new hairdo, perfect makeup, and lingerie. I had to have my say. "You sure look great," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Too bad you don't make that much effort for me." "It's not like that," she insisted. "I just want to make a good impression." "You're much more concerned about what he thinks than you have been about me," I replied. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to feel sexy today," she said. "Well, you were sexy. You knew that I loved you with all my heart," I said, walking over to her and taking her left hand in mine. I began slipping her rings off of her. "I said I loved you, but you broke my heart. I gave you this ring the day I married you. We said our vows and promised to forsake all others. That meant something to me, obviously not so much for you. I don't want the ring I gave you on your hand when you're stroking another guy's tool. The engagement ring was my mother's, so I will keep that for the same reason." I slipped both rings in my pocket and let her hand go. She looked stunned, but didn't argue with me. "I won't be here when he comes, but I don't want him to come into my house. If you do, I will castrate him and fix you so no man will ever look at you again. That's a promise." "He cannot come into my house. Do you understand?" I demanded. "Yes, I will not let him in," she replied, tears welling up in her eyes. "That's good. I will be watching," I said. "Why are you being like this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because the love of my life has just trashed that love. I hope this weekend is worth the consequences. Goodbye, Tina." I turned and walked away from my soon-to-be ex-wife. She was hollering at me as I walked out, but I was done with her. I parked down the street so I could watch. I made sure I was parked where Tina could see me. If he went in the house, I was going to jail, but they would be hurting worse. Pretty soon his car drove up. He walked up to the door and rang the bell. Tina opened the door and came right out with her suitcase in hand. She set it down and put her arms around his neck before giving him a long, deep kiss. As he picked up her suitcase, she looked my way and gave me a smug grin. She sat right next to him in the car and gave me the smug look again as they drove past me. I flipped her off and the smug look disappeared. I went back to my house and changed all the locks and the garage door code. I grabbed the suitcase I had already packed and drove to Kansas City. I checked in and went into my room, immediately setting up my laptop. The camera pointing to the bottom of the bed showed Tina naked. It was obvious he'd already screwed her. It was also pretty clear that he hadn't lasted too long. He came out of the bathroom naked and I had to laugh. He had a very small tool. Tina was accustomed to much more meat than this little guy could deliver. About that time, James walked to the bed by Tina. He was hard again and ready for another go at her. She smiled at him and opened her arms. I laughed when she reached for his little tool. He didn't have to take it easy because I would be surprised if she could even feel that little thing inside her. Wow, did she make a lousy trade? This guy was pitiful. I could see a bit of frustration on her face as he rested. It did not appear like she was going to be very happy with the results of this weekend. She was going to come home frustrated, then get kicked out on her ass the next day. He was soon ready to go again and gave her another less than thrilling 4-minute session. He was already done 3 times, and she wasn't even close. This was going better than I'd ever hoped it might. I had to quit watching and went out for supper and a couple of drinks. I left everything recording to have all I might need for the lawyer and also to rub her nose in what a loser she had picked. When I returned, he was asleep, and she was looking even more frustrated. This really was fun. After I got over the pain of losing my wife, I went to bed thinking about how much fun I was going to have messing with them tomorrow. I thought about some of the hot babes I had seen in the bar and knew I would soon be free to pursue them. I fell asleep with a smile in my heart. There was no more anguish for me as my course was plotted, and I knew where I was going. I awoke refreshed and ready for some fun. I showered, then went out for a nice breakfast and picked up some snacks in case I could not get away later. I went back to my room and called the local florist. I ordered a bouquet for Tina. I had always given her one just like this on our anniversary. Since there would not be another anniversary, I wanted her to think about what she was jeopardizing. I asked for it to be delivered at 11 a.m. My timing was perfect. They got dressed and went out for a while. When they came back, they began making out. They were soon naked, and he had just mounted her when there was a knock at the door. The florist delivered the flowers, and I could see a pensive look on Tina's face before she became angry. She got out her cell phone and dialed my number. My cell phone was soon ringing. I answered, and we had a short conversation. "Hello, how are you doing?" "Not worth a damn," I replied. "My wife is out drilling some other guy while I sit here getting angrier every time I think about it." "Why do you ask? It's not like you give a damn." "Well, I just got a bouquet of flowers just like you always get me for our anniversary. I wanted to know what you were doing." "I don't know how you could think I did that," I said. "First off, you and your rocket scientist boyfriend kept me in the dark about where you were going. Secondly, if I had sent you flowers, they would have been ragweed, and the card would have read, 'To my cheating wife.'" "That's not very nice," she retorted. "Right, and you and little James deserve nice things. Maybe they will give you some idea of what you were throwing away." I saw a very stunned look on her face as I turned my phone off. She was soon dialing again, but of course there was no answer. She tried a few more times and then gave up. She told him what I had said, and he assured her that I would get over it. That was not going to happen until I was rid of her. She wasn't in the mood for sex, but after a while she began to give in. So I called for a pizza delivery and ordered Tina's favorite pizza. They arrived just as he was mounting her again. He was very angry and didn't want to pay, but the delivery guy verified the room number and his cell phone number. He threatened to call the police, so James gave in and paid. They decided to eat since they had paid for it. After they enjoyed their lunch, they talked for a while, but James was soon after her again. When they started to get hot and heavy, I called the sandwich shop and ordered her favorite sandwich for delivery. He'd been in her for about a minute when the sandwich arrived. When Tina looked at the sandwich, she told him that I must have figured out where they were. James couldn't believe it, but she told him about my rocket scientist tracking and said that I'd probably hacked into her new email where he had mentioned it. It had taken her a while, but she finally figured it out. She told him I was very smart and would have had little problem doing that. They decided to get dressed and go out for a while. She told him when they got back, they would clean up and get dressed for their romantic date. She promised to make it up to him tonight. They left, and I was laughing so hard I had tears streaming down my face. When they returned, they showered and got dressed. Tina put on her very sexy underwear and modeled it for him. James tried to jump her, but she said she wanted to go out on their date. I wondered how long it would take for her surprise to announce itself. She finished dressing and looked very good. I hoped my surprise would work because it was going to be a hoot if it did. They went out, and I sat back to await their return. They returned in about an hour, and Tina stripped as she ran into the bathroom and into the shower. She was in there for a long time, and when she emerged, her breasts and crotch were bright red. They looked very painful, and it looked as if little James wasn't getting any tonight. Tina was lying on the bed moaning when James tried to fondle her. She went ballistic, telling him she was in pain and not interested right now. She said there must have been something in her new lingerie that she was allergic to. Little did she know, it was pepper spray. I spent some time organizing all my videos and making DVDs for the lawyer and James's wife. When I had everything ready, I went to bed. My very successful day had me smiling again. It seemed that there was trouble in paradise, and I had caused it. Sunday morning, I got up and headed for home. Tina was going to be in for much more hell when she got home. The next day, it would all be over. When James dropped her off later that day, he didn't even carry her bag to the door. He just let her out. I was sitting on the couch watching a football game and didn't even acknowledge her arrival. She announced that she was home, and I just said, "So?" She walked between me and the TV and gave me a sexy smile. "I thought you might be happy to see me." "You're not dead," I replied. "What would give you that idea? Do I look like I got stupid over the last few days? I know you did, but I didn't." "I never thought you were stupid," she said. "And I did think that you loved me enough to get past this." "Well, I loved you with all my heart, but that was in the past. You broke my heart when you went with him, even after I had repeatedly asked you not to. I told you how I felt, and that meant nothing to you. So as far as I was concerned, once you left with him, I didn't really care if you came back or not." "I can't believe that you feel that way about me," she said, her voice breaking. "Well, believe it, because you fucked up big time. I don't know if there is any chance for us going forward." "I will do anything to make it up to you," she pleaded. "I realize now that I made a huge mistake. Is there anything I can do?" "You can drop down on your knees and eat my ass," I said bluntly. "You know I can't do that," she replied, horrified. "I know you won't do that, so I guess that tells me how much your promise to do anything to save our marriage is worth. It's worth about as much as your promise to be faithful when we married. I was thinking about you all the way home today. I really want to make love to you tonight. I need you." "You need me? I don't think so. As far as making love to me tonight, there's not much chance. Did you have little James use a condom every time he fucked you? You know he's married and I can't have children. Do you think you are the only one he's used that routine with? You are now damaged goods as far as I am concerned. There is no way I would fuck you until you have a clean bill of health from a doctor. Also, I don't do seconds." "I know he's clean, but you could use a condom if you don't think so," she pleaded. "Right. I'm going to use a rubber to fuck my wife after she fucked some loser bareback all weekend. You chose little James over me. I'm going out for a while. I really can't stomach looking at your cheating ass anymore tonight. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. I like the master bedroom better, and unlike you, I didn't do anything wrong." "Can we talk about this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We can talk tomorrow after you get back from work. I really don't know what else there is to discuss." When they started to get hot and heavy, I called the sandwich shop and ordered her favorite sandwich for delivery. He'd been in her for about a minute when the sandwich arrived. When Tina looked at the sandwich, she told him that I must have figured out where they were. James couldn't believe it, but she told him about my rocket scientist tracking and said that I had probably hacked into her new email where he had mentioned it. It had taken her a while, but she finally figured it out. She told him I was very smart and would have had little problem doing that. They decided to get dressed and go out for a while. She told him when they got back, they would clean up and get dressed for their romantic date. She promised to make it up to him tonight. They left, and I was laughing so hard I had tears streaming down my face. When they returned, they showered and got dressed. Tina put on her very sexy underwear and modeled it for him. James tried to jump her, but she said she wanted to go out on their date. I wondered how long it would take for her surprise to announce itself. She finished dressing and looked very good. I hoped my surprise would work because it was going to be a hoot if it did. They went out, and I sat back to await their return. They returned in about an hour, and Tina stripped as she ran into the bathroom and into the shower. She was in there for a long time, and when she emerged, her breasts and crotch were bright red. They looked very painful, and it looked as if little James wasn't getting any tonight. Tina was lying on the bed moaning when James tried to fondle her. She went ballistic, telling him she was in pain and not interested right now. She said there must have been something in her new lingerie that she was allergic to. Little did she know, it was pepper spray. I spent some time organizing all my videos and making DVDs for the lawyer and James's wife. When I had everything ready, I went to bed. My very successful day had me smiling again. It seemed that there was trouble in paradise, and I had caused it. Sunday morning, I got up and headed for home. Tina was going to be in for much more hell when she got home. The next day, it would all be over. When James dropped her off later that day, he didn't even carry her bag to the door. He just let her out. I was sitting on the couch watching a football game and didn't even acknowledge her arrival. She announced that she was home, and I just said, "So?" She walked between me and the TV and gave me a sexy smile. "I thought you might be happy to see me." "You're not dead," I replied. "What would give you that idea? Do I look like I got stupid over the last few days? I know you did, but I didn't." "I never thought you were stupid," she said, "and I did think that you loved me enough to get past this." "Well, I loved you with all my heart, but that was in the past. You broke my heart when you went with him, even after I had repeatedly asked you not to. I told you how I felt, and that meant nothing to you. So as far as I was concerned, once you left with him, I didn't really care if you came back or not." "I can't believe that you feel that way about me," she said, her voice breaking. "Well, believe it, because you fucked up big time. I don't know if there is any chance for us going forward." "I will do anything to make it up to you," she pleaded. "I realize now that I made a huge mistake. Is there anything I can do?" "You can drop down on your knees and eat my ass," I said bluntly. "You know I can't do that," she replied, horrified. "I know you won't do that, so I guess that tells me how much your promise to do anything to save our marriage is worth. It's worth about as much as your promise to be faithful when we married. I was thinking about you all the way home today. I really want to make love to you tonight. I need you." "You need me?" "I don't think so. As far as making love to me tonight, there's not much chance. Did you have little James use a condom every time he fucked you? You know he's married and I can't have children. Do you think you are the only one he's used that routine with? You are now damaged goods as far as I am concerned. There is no way I would fuck you until you have a clean bill of health from a doctor. Also, I don't do seconds." "I know he's clean, but you could use a condom if you don't think so," she pleaded. "Right. I'm going to use a rubber to fuck my wife after she fucked some loser bareback all weekend. You chose little James over me. I'm going out for a while. I really can't stomach looking at your cheating ass anymore tonight. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. I like the master bedroom better, and unlike you, I didn't do anything wrong." "Can we talk about this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We can talk tomorrow after you get back from work. I really don't know what else there is to discuss." I walked out of the house and went to a nearby bar and grill to get some supper and clear my head. Actually, my head was clear as I knew exactly what I was doing. I just wanted to get away from her. I don't really drink, so I just ate and then went for a long walk. When I got home, she was in my bed. I looked at her and told her to get the fuck out of my bed. "This is our bed," she protested. "I have just as much right to be here as you do." "The hell you do. You gave up that right when you fucked little James. So you either get out of my bed or I'll drag your sorry ass out of here and toss you in the street." She began crying and slowly left the room. I closed and locked the door behind her. I could hear her still crying as she walked down the hallway. In the morning, I completely ignored her. We each had breakfast, and as she was leaving at her normal time, she turned and looked at me. "I love you," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. I gave her a very scornful look and replied, "I loved you too," making sure to emphasize the past tense. I saw tears start to fall as she turned and walked away. When she was gone, I began packing her things in garbage bags. I packed her stuff until I called James's wife. "Do you know that your husband spent the weekend with my wife?" I asked. She thought he had been away on business, so when I offered her copies of my evidence, she was very enthusiastic about the idea. I was stunned when she opened the door. She was absolutely stunning. I was at a loss for words and had to apologize to her. I blamed it on being stunned by her beauty, which of course was the truth. We got down to business, and I explained what had occurred over the weekend. She was furious, and we decided she would accompany me to the lawyer's office and see if he would take her case. He indeed took her case and even gave us a discount. She began filling out the paperwork while I talked to him. I asked him if I needed to wait to serve James to protect Tina. He said as long as she signed the papers beforehand, she would be okay. Tina and I went out for lunch while they got her papers ready. After she signed, I took her home and went home to await Tina's call. I was supposed to call Tina that night to let her know how things went. My phone rang about 3 o'clock. "What the hell is this?" she demanded. "What the hell is what?" I asked, playing dumb. "I just got divorce papers served on me, and James got papers about being sued for something." It all sounds pretty self-explanatory to me. I told you there would be consequences for your weekend. Apparently you didn't believe me. "I didn't think you would do this," she said, sounding hurt. "Maybe you should have listened to me rather than thinking about the bullshit that little James was filling your head with. I don't want to discuss this over the phone. I'll talk to you when you get back to my house." Then I just hung up on her. I took the garbage bags of her things and tossed them into the front yard, then awaited her return. She pulled into the driveway and flew into a rage. I was recording this so I would be able to get a restraining order to keep her away from me. She was screaming incoherently, and spit was flying from her mouth as she raged at me. I remained calm and collected as she vented. They finally broke in and began our last conversation. "If you want to talk, you need to settle down so we can talk. If not, I will put your things in your car and you can leave." "I never thought you would do this to me," she sobbed. "Do this to you?" I said incredulously. "You did this to me and to us. I told you several times not to do this, and even begged you not to destroy our marriage. You chose to destroy our marriage, so why would you think I wasn't going to divorce you?" "You said you loved me," she cried. "I did," I replied. "I loved you more than anything, and you broke my heart as a reward. The obvious problem is that you didn't love me or respect me. I can't live with someone who has that low of an opinion of me." "But I do love you," she insisted. "If you loved me, you would not have gone and drilled little James this weekend." "Why do you keep calling him little James?" she asked, confusion and hurt in her eyes. "I had video cameras in your room and recorded the entire weekend. It should be obvious why I call him little. The first time I saw his pathetic tool, I laughed until I cried. I wondered if you could even feel it inside you. I noticed that you weren't climaxing like you do when I drill you." "We don't drill, we make love," she protested. "That's the biggest difference. I would agree with you that we truly made love. I would bet that you are going to miss that. Look at the bright side. Now you can fuck anybody you want. You can have a new guy every night." "I don't want that, I want you and only you. Let's go in and sit down for a few minutes," I said, trying to calm myself. "I'm sorry for talking so nasty to you, but I have a lot of anger right now. But please know I would never do you any physical harm. The same does not hold true for little James." We went in and sat at the kitchen table, as we had so many times before. It struck me harshly when I realized that this would be the last time we sat together like this. She began, and I willed myself to keep calm and not speak so harshly to her. "He wouldn't really hurt James, would you?" she asked. "Why not? He destroyed my naively happy marriage. I think you will have to pay even beyond my lawsuit and his divorce." "He won't be getting a divorce," she said confidently. "His wife understood about what we wanted to do and said that she would allow him to do it. He believed that that was just a ploy to make me look bad so he could get in your pants. I talked to his wife this morning and shared my evidence with her. He told her he was out of town on business. We are now sharing a lawyer. He even gave us a quantity discount. I wish you had been honest when I asked you what you would do if I wanted to fuck another woman. You know you would have gone ballistic. He knew his wife would never go along with that." "I don't believe you," she said, shaking her head. He would never do something like that. Even now, you don't want to listen to my word, I said, exasperated. Exactly why you are now getting a divorce. However, I really don't care what you believe. When you call him later, you will find that he also got tossed out on his ear. So you are really kicking me out? I am. The night you told me about your plan, I went into the guest room to think. I knew within an hour that I would divorce you. I spent Thursday buying the equipment I needed to gather my evidence and to hack into your email account. Friday, I went to the lawyer and began the divorce process. Why didn't you tell me you were going to divorce me? I would have stopped. I don't think you would have. It would just have made you angrier. I explained to you several times how I felt, but the decision had to be yours. You had to be the one to stop it, or you would have been mad at me forever. I noticed in your emails that what I said meant nothing to you, so I was sure I was doing the right thing. I didn't sign the papers until the next Friday when you were getting ready for your date. I can't believe that I was that stupid. Is there any chance that you could forgive me? Tina, I loved you so much that I might have been able to. Last night I gave you a last chance and you blew it. I think I could possibly forgive you, but I would never trust you. I would be waiting every day for you to tell me you wanted to drill somebody else. I can't live like that. It's better we just finish it right now. She broke down and cried. I went on. Unlike you, I have given this a lot of thought, but I always come up with the same answer. I am going to divorce you, and I'm going to destroy little James like he destroyed my marriage. You can call him before you leave and share a place or whatever. Don't try to use your credit cards. They have all been canceled. I left half the money in our checking account for you, but I took my name off of it. I will split our savings with you. You can keep your car, but you will have to make the payments on it. You can have all of your clothes and personal things. Once you find a place to live, you can have as much furniture as you need. The house is mine. If I do sell it, I will split the proceeds with you. This is all spelled out in the divorce papers. If you want to fight it, I will use all the evidence that I have, and it will destroy you. I won't fight it. This is all my fault. I just wish I could take it back. Well, you know the difference between a cheating wife and a light bulb, don't you? No, what is it? You can unscrew a light bulb. She didn't think it was very funny. I told her that it was time for her to go and let her out of my house. I put all her things in the car. She watched and cried as I packed. I opened the door for her, then handed her one last thing. It was her wedding ring, which I had flattened with a hammer. I told her that it was now just scrap gold, which should bring her a good price. I closed her door, then leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. Goodbye, my love, I said. I turned and walked back to my lonely house. I didn't even watch her drive away. I couldn't have even if I'd wanted to. My eyes were filled with tears, and I cried for another hour until I was totally drained. It was time to consider my options. As I saw it, I had 3 choices. 1, I could crawl inside a bottle and drink myself into a stupor, but I barely drink and don't like the morning after, so that was no good. 2, I could make everyone happy and kill myself, but I would not give Tina the satisfaction of thinking she had driven me to that. 3, I could stand up tall, knowing I had done nothing wrong, and move on with my life. One vast improvement would be the absence of Tina. That thought brought a smile to my face. I stood up straight, still smiling, and called James's wife, Emma. We made plans for dinner that evening, and I knew I was on the way to being healed. We might end up being just friends, or maybe I could trade up, because the vision of her still lingered in my mind. That night at dinner, I couldn't help but be amazed by how easy it was to talk to Emma. We laughed, shared stories, and found solace in our mutual betrayal. It was an odd but comforting bond. I learned that she too was in the process of moving on and had already begun divorce proceedings against James. Days turned into weeks, and the divorce with Tina went smoothly, thanks to all the evidence I had gathered. Tina signed the papers without contesting, realizing she had no ground to stand on. Her only request was that I leave her with some dignity, which I did by not sharing the details of our fallout publicly. During this period, my interactions with Emma became more frequent. We supported each other through the rough patches, and a friendship blossomed. One evening, after another dinner together, Emma and I found ourselves at my place, talking late into the night. The air was filled with an unspoken tension, and before I knew it, we kissed. It was a moment of pure connection, devoid of any thoughts of revenge or betrayal, just two broken hearts finding comfort in each other. As our relationship deepened, I reflected on my past with Tina. The memories that once brought pain now felt like lessons learned. Emma and I took things slow, allowing ourselves to heal individually while enjoying each other's company. I could see a future with her, one that was built on mutual respect and understanding. Meanwhile, James's life was falling apart. He lost his job due to the scandal, and his reputation was in shambles. His wife had taken him to the cleaners in the divorce, and he was left with little more than his car and a damaged ego. It was a small consolation for the pain he had caused, but it was satisfying to see him face the consequences of his actions. Tina, on the other hand, had moved into a small apartment and was trying to rebuild her life. We had no further contact beyond the legal proceedings, and I preferred it that way. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The last I heard, she was struggling to find stability, bouncing between jobs and relationships. Emma and I continued to grow closer, and as the months passed, we became inseparable. We both knew the value of trust and communication, having learned the hard way what happens when those are absent. Our bond was strengthened by our shared experiences, and we supported each other through the lingering pain of our pasts. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think we'll ever fully move past what happened?" she asked. "I think we already have," I replied, taking her hand in mine. "What we went through brought us to this point, and I'm grateful for that. We're stronger now, and we have a chance to build something real." She smiled, and in that moment, I knew we were on the right path. We had both been through hell, but we had come out the other side, ready to face the future together. As the first anniversary of my divorce approached, I reflected on the journey. The pain and betrayal had given way to healing and new beginnings. I had lost a wife, but gained a partner who truly understood me. Emma and I had found love in the most unexpected place, and it was a love built on the solid foundation of shared experience and mutual respect. One day, as we walked through the park, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I had faced my worst fears and come out stronger, ready to embrace whatever came next. "Do you think we'll ever get married?" Emma asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "Maybe one day," I replied, smiling at her. "But there's no rush. Let's enjoy what we have and see where it takes us." She nodded, and we continued walking, hand in hand, ready to face the future together. Months turned into a year, and my life had taken on a new normal. Emma and I decided to move in together, taking a significant step forward in our relationship. It felt right, and our home quickly became a place of love and laughter, a stark contrast to the tension-filled house I had shared with Tina. One evening, as we were settling into our new routine, I received an unexpected call from Tina. Her voice was shaky, and she sounded desperate. "Can we meet? I need to talk to you," she pleaded. I hesitated, not wanting to open old wounds, but curiosity got the better of me. "All right," I said. "We can meet at the coffee shop downtown." When I arrived, Tina was already there, looking worn and tired. She had clearly been through a lot. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I need closure." "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I wanted to apologize," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know I destroyed our marriage and hurt you deeply. I was selfish and didn't think about the consequences. I've been living with that guilt every day." I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. "Tina, I appreciate your apology, but you need to understand that what you did was unforgivable. I've moved on, and I think it's time you do too." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "I know, it's just been hard. I've been struggling to find my footing. I lost everything: my job, my friends, and my self-respect. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely feeling a pang of sympathy. But you have to take responsibility for your actions and move forward. Dwelling on the past won't help you. You're right, she said, her voice firmer now. I just needed to say it. I needed to let you know that I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. Finally, I stood up. I hope you find peace, Tina, I said. Take care of yourself. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The chapter with Tina was finally truly over. Back at home, Emma greeted me with a warm smile. How did it go? She asked, concern etched on her face. It went well, I said, pulling her into a hug. She apologized, and I think we both got the closure we needed. Emma kissed me gently, and I felt a deep sense of contentment. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Life with Emma continued to flourish. We traveled, explored new hobbies, and built a life filled with joy and mutual respect. Every day was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had gained. My past with Tina felt like a distant memory, a lesson learned that had ultimately led me to a happier place. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to me with a smile. I have a surprise for you, she said, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Oh, what is it? I asked, curious. She handed me a small, wrapped box. Inside was a keychain with a small engraved tag that read, "Home is wherever I'm with you." I felt a lump in my throat as I looked at her. Emma, this is perfect. Thank you. There's more, she said, her smile growing wider. I've been thinking about our future, and I want to take the next step. Will you marry me? I was speechless, overwhelmed with emotion. Yes, I finally managed to say, 1,000 times yes. We embraced, and I felt a sense of completeness I had never known before. Our journey together had been unexpected, born out of pain and betrayal, but it had led us to this beautiful moment. As we planned our wedding, I reflected on the twists and turns that had brought us here. Life had thrown some harsh lessons my way, but in the end, it had also given me the greatest gift, a partner who understood me, who had been through the fire with me, and who loved me unconditionally. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. As I looked into Emma's eyes and recited my vows, I knew this was where I was meant to be. The past was behind us, and the future was bright. Emma and I continued to build our life together, always mindful of the lessons we had learned. We knew the value of trust, communication, and mutual respect. Our love was strong, and our bond unbreakable.